Hey guys, the video you're about to see is very controversial. It's being faithful hard in a relationship. So I hope you enjoy it. I had a lot of audio issues. This is why I'm shooting this right now while I'm editing it. So I hope that doesn't bother much parts. It's a little bit of static, but just enjoy it, get the knowledge, get the information, and I hope it helps you in the future. And you heard me talk about polyamorous and how in our day and age, more and more people are starting to look towards open relationships because it seems like it's worked in the past for people. It seems like the only way, because there's so much temptation, everything is sexualized. There's so much going on in our world that people find it easier to be open. Because being in a monogamous relationship is very difficult. It takes a lot of willpower, it takes a lot of practice and learning, and that takes time to build up. So when people ask me about their relationships and how their boyfriend or girlfriend decided to want something open, and they don't know how to feel about that, because it's like, I've been with this person for X amount of years and then they want to just open it up to anybody. This is rare sight. And I had a friend the other day who asked me this question, not asked me, but we spoke about it because his girlfriend currently decided to just change up on him. She wanted something monogamous in the beginning, he wanted it open. Then he decided to go with her wishes and became monogamous. And then she, 2 years later, decides to ask to be in an open relationship. And that just threw him off completely due to the fact that he wanted that in the very beginning, and now she wants that. And basically the tides have turned. Doesn't work that way. And to answer that question, is being in a monogamous relationship, being faithful, hard? It is. And it depends on there's a lot of factors to consider when trying to be faithful in a relationship. It depends on what kind of city you live in. It depends on where you live. It depends on what kind of situations you put yourself into. So think about who you hang out with, where do you hang out, what do you do when you hang out. It's like a who, what, when, where, and how kind of thing. So if you see my video on the long distance relationship kind of thing, I kind of touch a lot on these subjects about context and location and where you're at, and kind of remove yourself from those situations that make it easier to cheat. It's in everyone's blood. Animalistically, if you look at science and you study our history in terms of sex, so you look at books like The Red Queen, you look at books like Sex at Dawn, which explain why we're not a monogamous culture, where we're meant to procreate with many people, we're meant to have multiple partners, we're meant for that to happen.
Sorry.
So those books, there's tons of studies out there in anthropology that explain why we aren't meant to be in a monogamous relationship. It's rather new. The whole marriage concept, that's rather new. The whole being with one person, that's rather new. It's probably only been around for hundreds of years, and it got really, really serious in terms of marriage and people being together just with one person around the time of World War II. And that kind of, not even World War II, World War I you could say, because these men were leaving, they wanted to build families before they left, they want to be able to come back to family, they wanted something to care for. And then you got World War II, where a lot of marketing came in when it came to diamond rings and engagement rings, and kind of how they pushed that on us, and they did such a great job in marketing that we think it's a must to have marriage, when that's not true. And it makes it harder for us to think, now that we got the internet and we can see everything and study ourselves and see divorce rates are super high, no one understands why, and when you do the science on it and it backs it up, people are still getting married. I mean, you can go from here in New York, you go to City Hall, see hundreds of people getting married. When my cousin got married about a year and a half ago, the day we went, we had to wait in order for him for us to go in the room and get them to exchange. You've seen in my other videos where I talked about modern romance that book where he explains how like people usually marry for all the wrong reasons instead of just love. You need the whole pot of ingredients: love, respect, humility, honesty, communication. You need all those factors in order to build something that's going to be long lasting. And that's not considering no matter how perfect you are. It's not saying that you anything bad won't happen. Things still happen. I mean, I was reading an article the other day, I believe. I should have kept it, but they were saying how basically no matter, I was listening to a podcast, sorry. It was a podcast I was listening to, and the woman on the podcast was talking about it was all about the signs of cheating and being unfaithful and everything. And she even said like even men in the most happiest relationships still cheat because we crave novelty, we crave having multiple women. No matter, I've met men who had tons of women, they decide to get a girlfriend and they think that that's it, like they're tired of the grind of meeting women and courting them and bringing them to bed. That's a process, and it takes a lot of time, rather than being with one woman, you build something and you're happier. And they still end up going back to their old ways when the relationship is six months in, a year in, it just changes up. And this is something that we have a problem with, and this is something that I've helped people with before on my website, through social media, where I answer everyone's questions on the science of relationships and using my past experiences and all the knowledge I've gained. Yes, it is. It's not easy. It takes a lot of willpower. It takes saying no to some events you may want to go to, great club you maybe used to go to and you had a lot of success there, and your friends want to go back to that place, and there are a lot of women that are your type there. You probably shouldn't go because you're going to drink, you're going to hang out with your friends. Maybe if your friends are single, it makes it kind of harder to avoid doing something unless your friends are really cool and they'll stop you. It's just having the right people around you, being in the right situations. Instead of going out and doing stuff like that, do something more social, or adventurous, climbing mountains, hiking, anything like that, to keep yourself away from that. It's definitely very hard. I can give tips now on how to prevent yourself from getting into that position of being unfaithful. So here are 5 tips to help you to overcome the thought and the temptation of being unfaithful, no matter how logical you are. 1, be around people who are also in relationships with you. So people who are in their own monogamous relationship, and successful ones have probably been around for a while. That's one way to avoid being unfaithful. 2, put yourself in the proper contexts. If you know a specific activity you do has a lot of attractive women, and maybe you can go and put yourself in that position, and if you're talking to them and you're starting to see yourself wanting to hang out with them or anything, pull yourself back. It's okay to be a little rude to this person if they want to hang out with you. It's always good to throw in a little bit like, hey, my girlfriend, or like my boyfriend, and this and that, to kind of let them know, like, hey, I'm not trying to just say like, oh, I have a girlfriend or I have a boyfriend. But as you're talking and something comes up and you say, yeah, me and my girlfriend did that before, or something like that, to let them know, like, hey, I'm taken, I'm just looking for friends, I'm just here to have a good time, and that's it. Number 3, and that's having a great relationship with yourself. I know this sounds weird, it's hard not to, but having that great relationship with yourself, building that conscious part, knowing when to stop. That's the hardest part for us to do, is when we're presented with a temptation, we don't know how to stop. We don't have the proper willpower, we don't have the proper training, you could say. We train ourselves to have the willpower to stop something we don't want to do. If you're for example, you're trying to take care of a big workload and you don't have a lot of time left, you know what you have to do. And you end up playing video games or something like, or watching a TV show, and hours pass and you probably don't have much time to get all this work done. those are times when you know you need the willpower to stop yourself and just get to work. And the same thing applies when trying to be faithful. It may be a bit controversial, but I would say make yourself unattractive. Don't make eye contact. Think, with certain pretty women, don't initiate conversation, and keep to yourself a lot. It sounds funny because I'm not the type, I'm a very social person. I like to talk to people, and I would, but I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I've been working on myself for years and kind of trained myself to know when like a specific situation arises where yes, I'm attracted to this person, yes, I might start to gather attraction for this person. I kind of keep myself away. I'll be a little more standoffish, not too bad, like still nice, but no, like letting them know like, hey, I kind of don't want to be bothered right now, and just leave it at that. That's always a good way to stop yourself from doing something you will regret. And number 5, last but not least, being a no person. It means knowing when to say no. There's a great book on that called The Power of No by James Altucher. You should check it out. Because sometimes you feel weird saying no, and then you go to the place and you can tell, people can tell you don't kind of want to be there. So the best way to say is no in a nice way. There are ways to say no nicely, and unless you have a great relationship with a person, you can say no. But when it comes to possibly not being unfaithful, is yes, if a coworkers invite you out, and there's a coworker there that might be there that you're attracted to, and you guys have a little chemistry going, and you're with somebody, not to go to that event. Or if you do, keep far away from her. You know her. Like I said earlier, the rudeness. And yes, it sounds kind of messed up, but when I was listening to that podcast, The Science of Cheating, that's what she said. And sometimes that's the only way to stop yourself from doing something. Because when most situations arise where people become unfaithful, they cheat on their spouse, significant other, it's usually accidental. It's not on purpose. It's after they usually feel horrible about it. Even men. It's not like something that's great and not something that we aspire to do to people and hurt someone else. It's not something we want to do. So I'm going to end that here. It was great. Hope you enjoyed this video. Of course, new one out next week. And as always, stay awesome.